Have you guys ever wondered what it's like to be a dealer on the other side of the table at a card show? What it's like to actually sell cards and kind of wonder, could I ever do it? And what does it take to actually be successful? Well, we sat down with the promoter of the Front Row Card Show, second biggest card show in the world. They have a show every month, and he gave us a lot of advice, things that you could do to be better at selling cards at card shows. And if you haven't done it yet, he might just convince you to take the leap.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. This is LZ, and I am here with Nick, as always. And today we have on the show Dan Bliss, who is the promoter of the Front Row Card Show. This show, many different cities. It's one of the biggest card shows in the United States, or Dan will probably even tell us, maybe even the world. But Vegas, Pasadena, Phoenix, Seattle, a lot of different cities, maybe even one close to your home. So we wanted to have Dan on the show today to talk to us about Front Row Card Show and get a different perspective than maybe we normally get with some of our guests. So Dan, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, welcome,
Well,
Dan.
thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent.
Right.
So, yeah, you know what I love about this? We always focus on like the collecting. What are you going to get? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? We never have done something on the other side of the table, like how to be a good dealer, how to set up at a card show or vendor, whatever you want to call it. And you are clearly an expert on this. I'm sure you've seen all the bad things you can see and all the good things you can see. And we thought this would be awesome to like have you here and talk about it. So Dan, what does it take to be a good dealer on the other side of the table?
Well, I think it starts with authenticity. That I think is number one. If you're in it just for the money or whatever, then it comes across, And if you come at it from a collector's perspective, then you'll be a better vendor at shows. Because your customers will sense that. If all you're trying to do is maximize your dollars for every single card you're selling, and you're trying to squeeze collectors, they can sense that, and they don't really care about doing business with you if you're inauthentic. So I think that's a real important point. Is that if you're a collector and you're thinking about becoming a vendor, first of all, you're starting from a good place because you have a collector mentality. It can become a hindrance because when you buy things, then you have to decide, am I willing to part with it? So, and it's okay to be a person selling at shows, a vendor, and also have a personal collection. That's fine. But the best thing to do is just keep that stuff at home so you're not tempted. Sometimes you see a dealer will put out something and then somebody say, hey, how much is that? And they're, oh, that's not for sale. Well, why is it out? Because you might, the next thing you know, they're going to get an offer on it. They're like, oh man.
Why is it out? That's funny. I've asked people that before. I've gotten all kinds of answers. One is my wife made me put it in here, but I don't want to sell it, so I won't put a price tag on it. There's all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, I really believe that it's got to start from a place of authenticity. I mean, there are some vendors who have a collection that wasn't theirs. Maybe they got it somewhere, and all they care about is liquidating. They're not at a show to buy. They literally, I'm here to just sell stuff, and I don't even care what I'm selling. I looked them up and put the highest price tag I can on everything, and it's a sale, but I'm not even giving you good deals. I'm asking top dollar, and but I don't have a personal attachment to any of this. And it just comes across. I think the very, very best vendors are the people who have conversations with the attendees at a show, and are engaged in a conversation and enjoy having conversations about the hobby with, a collector, without even the expectation of making a sale. And if you're engaging with collectors, attendees, then you're going to have more fun yourself as a person. So hopefully if you start selling cards and collectibles at shows, hopefully you enjoy the hobby, and that way your expectations of the show are maybe a little different, and frankly you'll have more fun.
Mm. Dan, you hit the nail on the head with one of the things that you brought up is being engaging. I can't stand it when I go to a show and I'm walking and I go up to a table and the vendor or the dealer is just like on his phone, like won't pay attention to me at all. Like
Yeah.
it just gives me a sour taste. I immediately move on to the next table, but it just kind of puts a damper on the day when you're experiencing that. So
Right.
that's a yeah, that's a big one.
Well, Nick
Yeah,
had
go ahead.
asked me for a couple of suggestions, and I'm just
Mm,
going to bring that up now because of what
yeah.
you just pointed out, and that's spot on. That's one of the things I want to mention is, if you're a dealer at a show, you have to be engaging. And to your point, there are a lot of times where they're on their phone or they're sitting down away from the table. And then you feel like if you want to ask them, hey, can I take a closer look at one of these cards? That you're inconveniencing them to get up and come over to you. And and there's a lot lost there. You'll lose sales as if your goal is to do a lot of sales and even to enjoy the show. You're missing out on both those opportunities. You're missing out on the engagement opportunity, and you're missing out on the potential sales if the customer, the collector, doesn't engage with you. They don't ask about something because they're like, I don't want to buy. I don't know if I really want that card. I probably don't. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. But I'm not going to bother them. They're playing a game on their phone or whatever they're doing.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
even, or a couple people sitting on chairs face to face, and they're like ignoring,
Hmm.
even if they're not on their phone, they're talking to each other and they're not engaged. Um, engagement is really important. And I think, and this is something that's a little bit physically taxing, but I believe in standing as a vendor. I am standing all the time because I want to be eye level with the customer, with the collector.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you're sitting down and you're looking up at them, you're not having a connection there. And I think standing is now, at the end of the day, especially after a 2-day show, your knees will be tired. But the benefit is, you're going to genuinely have better conversations. And if you say hi to people when they're walking by, and one of the best questions I think to ask is asking a collector what they're into. What do you collect? Whatever the question is, but ask them that. Everybody loves to talk about what they like,
Yeah.
So if you start with that, that's a fantastic way to get to be an icebreaker, get the ball rolling. And then the thing that actually comes from that very frequently is they'll say, oh, I'm into Wade Boggs, whoever it is. And then you say, oh, you don't realize this. I got his rare variation of something over here. And oh, they didn't see it. So now you break that out, and they now get an opportunity to buy something that maybe they didn't see because it's in the corner. Maybe it's under your table. Or
Right.
someone's into Hank Aaron and your Hank Aaron stuff isn't out. Or maybe someone's into Mike Trout and your Trout cards you keep in a box under your table. Whatever it is, the fact that you have that conversation opens up a lot of opportunities for informing the collector about something that they didn't see.
Right.
Yeah, this is sales 101, right?
Yeah.
Sales
Just
101.
Be
build,
engaging.
yeah,
Yeah.
build a relationship. Don't push the sale. It will come.
Right.
Otherwise, you
know?
might as well just be on eBay. And it's funny,
Right.
like the best experience that I had. So we recently had a show called the Shriners out here. It's 300-ish tables. It's probably our largest regional show in Massachusetts. And I brought my son along and LZ's son as well. And my son's 9, right? So he's not like this high-end collector. We're just scooting around, he just wants to buy random things. We come across this table, they got a wheel to spin, right? And this isn't an exotic prize that you get if you spin the wheel. You just spin the wheel and it's like a pack. It's like $1 pack. It made his month. Like he won the pack
Mhm.
and he talked to the guy. And I think I bought a card off him too. And it was just like a good story. And my son left away, walking away like super happy. So I totally agree with that. The engagement is really key for sure.
Well, I will let you know that wheels are fun. We've got very strict rules about them though at our shows.
Interesting.
Yeah, we allow wheels if it's if it's free, if it's a free spin. Or if it's you can buy something, you get a free spin. It's fine, but it's got to be a free spin.
Yep.
We've had a lawyer explain to us that if you have to pay to do the wheel spin, specifically to pay to do the wheel spin, that in a lot of places it's just not legal. And
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, and again,
gambling.
The concern is obviously we do shows in Vegas, and that might be a thing too. But we were told that that's the case also in California.
Okay.
So we just don't allow it unless it's a free spin.
Yeah, this was a free spin, I guess. So we were kosher.
That's fine. That's fantastic, and that's a really good for, like you said, engagement. And it got your son to stop at the table. Next thing you know, you're having a conversation and making things happen.
Exactly.
And that is a fun element.
So speaking of, sorry, yeah. So speaking of like the intimidation factor here, and like, even before you create engagement, like how do you get over that hump? Because for me, it's intimidating. I've got a collection, and I thought about setting up before, but I'm almost like scared. It's like, oh man, I gotta like get this showcase, and I gotta organize it all and price it, and like I don't know. It's kind of like, it's strange. I shouldn't be nervous about it, but what advice would you have for somebody who's never set up at a card show before to get them to like go over that hump?
Well, it's fascinating for me. I love that question because we get that too. We get that people being nervous about a first time show. It's my first time, and they'll say that, and it's funny. I started off selling cards at a flea market when I was a teenager, so I've done it so long that for me, I made my displays myself, and the flea market didn't give you a table. When you go to a show, they give you a table and chairs, right? Mm-hmm. But when I was a kid at a flea market, they give you nothing. So I literally brought a door and 2 sawhorses because that's all I could wrangle up in our garage. And I asked my dad, "Hey, can I borrow a couple sawhorses? Do we have a big piece of wood?" And he's like, "No, but we got a broken door." So I used the broken door, and that was my table. But to go to your point about being nervous about it, I would say, look, you do have to prepare. One of the other things that as a bullet point to talk about is I highly recommend pricing everything. Mm-hmm. And now there's a few things here and there that aren't priced because it takes time. That's fine, but the bulk of your stuff should be priced, because I think as a collector, and we've all been to shows, right? You go to someone's table and you don't know if this person's got crazy high prices or if they're reasonable or if they're fantastic low prices as an attendee. You don't know that. Mm-hmm. And if you have to ask, you're like, I'm not going to bother this person. Some people are shy. They don't want to have to ask. So it's really good to price everything, because then they know instantly. They can look at something and say, they see $100 card, and well, if you're priced at $125, they'll be like, this person's overpriced. Now they're going to judge you for it. Now, mind you, if you don't price things fairly, they will judge you for it, and they will immediately determine. And it even can be random. Like, the hard part is if you price one thing too high, and that's the one thing they check, they could immediately label you as overpriced. And so that's the worry about, especially if you price everything now and then you go to several shows and a couple months go by and you haven't repriced things, and a few things go down. Next thing you know, a few cards are overpriced, But if things go up, then suddenly you have a few bargains. So it goes both ways, but it is good to, first of all, price everything. So, and second of all, make sure that your prices are fair. Mm-hmm. So, I recommend pricing everything at comps or below. Hear me out. Comps or below. You do not have to squeeze people. A couple things. I'm sorry, I'm getting away from your question.
It's all good.
No, that's all right. This is good.
Yeah.
The reason I say this is a lot of people think, I'm going to go to a show. First of all, Front Row Card Show, we have massive crowds. We have huge crowds, really busy tables.
Vendors how big are your crowds?
Well, we'll have 6,000 people at our Vegas
Nice.
show. And
Nice.
the lines, if you look at our Instagram, you'll see the lines to get into our show are really long. But let me add a caveat to that. I keep going in tangents. I apologize for that. But we have really long lines, but we get people in the door really quickly. In fact, we wristbands people while they're standing in line.
Good.
So the
Perfect.
minute the doors open, it's like a floodgate. So even if you're way back in line, there's doors open at 10 a.m., you'll be in by 10:02, even if you're at the back of the line, because we wristband the line. So it's just a customer service thing. So I don't want to scare people. But even the point is, a crowded show, a big show, your neighbor is your competitor. Some people think, well, comps on eBay for this, I'm going to use a $100 card as an example. Comps on eBay are $100, but I'll be at a show and there'll be thousands of collectors, so I'm going to charge $120. Well, understand, there's thousands of collectors, but there's also hundreds of vendors. So,
That's right.
If somebody comes to your table and you're asking $120 for something that's worth $100, they'll go, I'll keep looking. And guess what? 3 tables down, they're going to find the same card at $100. So you've also got a lot of competition at a show. So you have a dedicated, focused audience, but you're also surrounded by competition. So there's a concept in economics called price elasticity. Okay, so if there's a point where you learn that by dropping your price 10%, and then by dropping your price another 10%, and dropping your price another 10%, in sports cards, because collectors are so smart these days. They're so smart. They've got technology. They can see comps, and then they can walk around and look at competition. It's a very efficient market. And what you'll find is dropping your prices could double your sales. I kid you not. If you drop your prices, you'll double your sales. With the same crowd, all you do is drop your price, you will double your sales. So it's just about doing the math on it and figuring out what's your cost of goods. What did you put into some of these cards? Again, if it's an ongoing thing, it's what you have into the cards. And I'm willing to lose money on cards. I got to price it fairly. And if I price it fairly, even if I paid too much for it, I'll turn it over. Then I'll put that money into new cards. Then I'll make money on the next card. And I'm fine with that. So I've learned as a vendor, turnover is a big deal, but you got to price fairly. It doesn't matter what you paid for something. You want to turn things over, make sales, give collectors a good deal. The other benefit about getting good deals, not only will you double your sales by lowering your prices, you will also build loyalty among collectors. They will come back to you next time you come to a show, next time they see you at a show, whether it's the same show or a different show. They'll come to me and say, hey, Dan, oh man, you remember last show? I bought this from you. Let me see what you got today. And they'll come back to me. They'll be loyal. They'll come back to me again and again and again because I give them good deals. And I don't squeeze them. I give them good
100%.
value.
Yeah. 100%, Dan. I mean, Nick referenced the last show we went to. Like, the next time that show comes around, I'm going to those 4 dealers that I dealt with. 100%.
Spot on.
I'm gonna go find them.
Now some people are overpriced, and then you'll get to know them, and then you'll go to them reluctant. And the minute you walk over, you're like, all right, this guy's overpriced. I'm only going to buy some from this guy if I'm in love with it.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I'm going to buy from this person because I will never find it anywhere else. It's incredibly rare, whatever it is. So that's the only.
Yeah, Dan, what's the best way to transact? Is it cash, or do you have other recommendations? PayPal and what have you? Like, what are your recommendations there?
Well, again, this is about Nick's question about preparing to be a vendor. I would always recommend, first of all, Square is the best. Use Square because you'll get a swiper, and you can swipe a credit card, and it's immediate. It's just genuine credit card transacting. Super easy, Nick, to set up. I think it's just look up Square and download their app, and then I think it's $10, and they'll send you a little swiper that you can plug into your phone. You don't need anything else. Now they got more sophisticated credit card swipers that you plug in or battery charged, whatever. You don't need it. Just get a little swiper you plug into your phone. It's professional. You can swipe it, and then you show your phone to the collector, and they can sign it. and it's fantastic. So
Perfect.
Square is great and it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that are active in the hobby are already on PayPal. So PayPal's good as an option, right? But also Venmo's fantastic at shows.
Mm-hmm.
Venmo's great. All those will charge you, in the neighborhood of 3%, so it's reasonable. Venmo's fantastic, though. I highly recommend Venmo as another option. Venmo is so easy because what happens is they give you a QR code.
Yeah,
So all you do is hold up your phone to a person, and they'll hold up their phone and basically put the camera on and point at your phone, and all they do is touch it, and it'll go right to send you money. It's that simple. So Square for credit cards.
Dan, when you're walking around shows, how many vendors are actually using Square?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or versus cash or whatever.
Well, all of them do cash. So
yeah, they all do cash. I'm just curious because I don't think have I ever seen Square? Maybe once. And I think it is a great idea.
It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Nick
they give you the swiper for free. I know.
Nick and I talk about like a captive audience, right? You have these people in this card show, right? And the juices start flowing, and next thing you know, they're pulling out their credit card to buy things. And you as a vendor, yeah, that's a great thing. Now, is my wife going to like that I'm pulling out my credit card? No. But
get them swiping.
Square will send you a little sign with their icon on it. Yeah. So it'll say Square, and then it'll have MasterCard, Visa, American Express, will have Discover. I have all those on there just to let people know. So, because it does every now and then, I have the sign up and I forget that the sign's there, and somebody goes, somebody might not even be looking to buy something, like, oh, you accept credit cards, and then like, all right, now I'm going to do some real shopping.
Exactly.
Okay, now I'm more interested.
Yes.
Oh man, now we're leveling up. That's funny.
If you don't mind, I want to go back to Nick's question about being worried. So, all I can say is try it. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay.
Take the leap.
If you go to a show and you decide I'm only going to accept cash, okay, that's fine. What I will recommend as a first-time vendor is find, buy, or bring a display case. I think it's really important. I go to a lot of shows and vendors, and they're a beginning vendor, and they'll have just cards out on the table.
Oh yeah.
And that's fine, but I can tell you our shows are too crowded to do that. We have too big of crowds, and if you got 6 people at your table, something will get stolen.
You know what else too? When I see that at a show, I don't know why I think this, but if I see cards out on a table, I'm like, oh, those are cheap cards. Like they can't be that. They can't be that great. Moving on to the good stuff.
Yeah, these are base cards
in
the glass.
You're conveying a message, and that your stuff is cheap, and it's like you expect it to be $5 cards, and
exactly.
And sometimes you'd be surprised. They've got some valuable stuff out there. But
52 mantles sitting on the table. Yeah.
I went to a show recently. I bought a Michael Jordan rookie card, raw. It was in rough shape, to be candid, but it was one of those vendors that just had it out on the table, and he had a Jordan rookie, like kind of the closest to him, of course,
Yeah.
But it's
So what? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It's also about professionalism, and most good shows will rent display cases. So even if you just rent one display case, you rent the table, you rent a display case. You don't have to bring it with you even, and it's a good thing to try it out. Just to try it, rent a display case. I have several of my own display cases that I bring when I'm a vendor. But if I'm traveling, like if I fly to a show, I'll carry my cards as a carry-on on the plane. Like I'll use a Zion case, and I don't want to check it, right? Because I don't want to lose it or get it damaged.
Sure.
So I carry it on with me. And then when I arrive at the show, I rent a display case, even though I own them. But you can't, it's just too hard to fly with them. So I'll just carry my Zion case and then do it that way. So again, for a first time vendor, just go do it. Go for it. I mean,
all right.
Take your time, price your cards, price them fairly. just sit at your coffee table and buy some stickers at Office Depot and price your cards and price them competitively. Don't price them at the top, price them competitively. And that way you'll have a really good show.
Dan, let's stay kind of in this similar vein of deciding whether you want to become a vendor or not. Maybe it's your first time. Pretend I'm this person. Walk me through the analysis I should do to figure out if I should travel to a show, like when it's worth it for me to travel.
Well, I would say this applies to even just being a vendor.
Okay.
I think a lot of people don't think it through about what inventory they have to sell. If you think about a show, let's say, our shows generally are $220 a table for a 2-day show. So it's $110 a day. So there's shows that are cheaper, there's shows that are more expensive. But you have to think through the math. Let's just use round numbers and say it's going to cost you $100 a day. Okay. What is your margin on your cards? So if you've got, let's say the cards you buy, you're going to make 20. I'm going to think about the buying and selling, like the entrepreneurial side of it. I'm not, again, if you're talking about being a vendor, I'm not talking about being a collector, buying something that's a grail card. You're not really thinking about margin as much. You're thinking about, this is something I want for myself. Okay. But what we're talking about here is the business side of buying and selling. Every retail business in the world, has cost of goods sold and they have a profit margin, right? And, when you walk into a retail store, most of the time, the stuff in there costs them 50 cents on the dollar, right? So you go into a clothing store, it's, something's $50, they probably paid 25 for it, and then they do a sale for 20% off, whatever. But for sports cards, depending on what you have, oftentimes you don't have big margins. Oftentimes you might have, 20% margins or less, especially on the really hot stuff. The hotter the item and the better it sells. If it's a graded card with a really efficient marketplace, oftentimes those you might make 15% on it.
Right.
I mean, if you're talking higher dollar stuff, you might buy something for $850 and sell it and ask $1,000 for it and maybe sell for $950. So you make $100 on an $850 deal. Oof. And that's fine. That's fine. That's part of the hobby.
There's also other factors too. I mean, how you transact, you're doing cash deals. Absolutely. There's advantages to
it's a credit card, all that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Interesting.
But hold on, I want to stick with this because you have to think about this as a vendor. So if you're doing a show and it costs you $100 a day to be there, if your margins, your average margins, some might be lower, some might be higher. You might be selling single cards out of a bin and your cost of goods might be 50 cents on the dollar or less, depending on where you got it, right? But if your margins on average are 25%, well, you need to sell $400 to break even that day, right?
Right. Yep.
Because your table costs you $100. So you sell $400. Your cost of goods is $300. Your table costs you $100. You broke even. So it costs you, that much. So you got to think about that. So if you're traveling, you got to add the cost of airfare. Or driving if you're gas, or you got to also add the cost of staying in a hotel. So, generally speaking, if you don't have high dollar items and more valuable inventory, I don't recommend traveling.
Okay.
If you're selling small dollar items, and even if you have really good stuff, you're going to struggle to break even, after paying for, your travel costs plus hotel. It's hard.
That's great advice.
I never selling big ticket items. There's a lot of vendors that'll do, 10,000, 20,000 a day. And they're like, I don't care. I don't care what the table costs or whatever. I'm good. I'll rent 10 display cases.
Sure.
Because they're selling $100,000 cards at a whatever 10, 20% margin. It's
right.
Negligible.
Right, exactly. These are people who are doing, they're profiting thousands of dollars a week, and they don't care if they spend $500, $1,000 to be at a show. They don't care.
What's interesting here? It's making me realize why you see the bigger and better cards at the bigger and better shows.
That's right.
It's like it's obvious. It's
Yeah.
literally economics, right? That you
Right.
have a better economic situation, so you're selling
And
those
they're
cards
willing
there.
to travel for a big show.
Yep.
They're willing to
Yeah.
travel.
Right.
But they're not willing to travel for a 50 table show
No.
because also coincidentally, there's a there's a balance, and it's a give and take the way it comes together, where the big buyers also know that they're more likely to find, first of all, more options to buy, being the big dollar collectors, right? They're going to find more options to buy at a big show, and they're also going to find uh, the big ticket sellers at the big shows. So the combination of those things, it's like they build on each other.
Right.
The
And then
big
it's almost like
shows have better buyers, which brings better vendors, which brings better buyers, which brings better vendors, and then that's why the top tier shows, once they get to that point, they continue to enhance that, because then they tend to get the better vendors and bigger vendors and
Right.
high ticket items.
Mhm.
And now you're talking long-term value. If you go back to economics, right, the long-term value of a customer, you do that one deal and you've paid your margin on that deal and you have your sunk costs, but now you've got 5 future deals ahead of you with them where the sunk costs aren't involved. So it makes sense.
Right.
Dan,
Excellent.
what's the ratio? How many people are traveling? Because you promote big shows, front row or big shows.
Well,
So what's the ratio of people traveling
it
versus
it, it,
local?
it it changes as the show grows. Um, our first shows in Vegas were fairly small, and most of our vendors were local, a vast majority of them. And then as we grew, some more people would travel, then more collectors would travel. And then we grew some more, and then more vendors would travel. And we're at the point now where I'm sure more than half of our vendors in our Vegas show. Our Vegas show is 450 tables, and I'm sure more than half of our vendors are from other states.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
More
great.
than half, well, more than half.
So
So
Dan,
out of 450, we might have 200 local,
Wow.
and 250 have traveled.
I didn't expect that ratio. Man. Dan, I mean, you're definitely a wealth of knowledge. I want to make sure you have an opportunity to kind of have people reach out to you. So first of all, how can people find out about the Front Row Card Show? Where's the website? What's the Instagram handle? And if they want to reach out to you in particular, what's a good way to get in touch? Like maybe they want to set up as a vendor at one of your shows.
Well, to reach us on social media, go to Front Row Card Show on Instagram and on Facebook. Our website is simple enough, frontrowcardshow.com. It rhymes, Front Row Card Show. So if you can remember that, then you'll find us online. If anyone wants to book a table, you can literally just book a table on our website.
Oh,
We will follow up with you. You can just go on
Nice.
there and buy a table. We follow up with all of our vendors, new vendors, and ask them what they sell. And occasionally we refund people if it's not appropriate, if it's not part of the hobby, or we've had people try to book a table to sell insurance.
No.
come
Well,
on.
well,
Ice
they
cream,
went to the
like
collector,
whatever.
and they see a big crowd, and they're insurance salesmen, and they think, oh, there'll be a lot of people there. I'm gonna sell insurance, and I'm like,
It's like one baseball card and a bunch of insurance.
yeah, I don't want somebody
Oh,
selling
bunch
life
of
insurance at our
clipboards.
card shows. So, or somebody selling unlicensed product. We won't allow
Oh,
that.
right.
So,
Yeah, they're just yeah.
Or the other thing we won't allow is there's only 4 grading companies will allow. We've had grading companies book tables and we refund them. We say, I'm sorry. I mean, there's only 4 companies we'll work with.
Okay. Well, that's
Okay.
great. Okay, so they can get a table on your website, Front Row
Go
Card
ahead
Show for the
and book it on
socials.
our website. Yep.
Super easy. I think we just need to have you back on, and we could just geek out some more about this. I think that's the bottom line. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
we
I hope it's been helpful for anybody who either wants to be a vendor, or maybe they're an existing vendor and they're looking for ways to maximize their sales at a show. And again, I'll say it again and again. You drop your prices, you will double your sales. It's really that simple. Collectors are incredibly sophisticated, incredibly knowledgeable at shows. So don't think you're going to pull something over their eyes and do that. I mean, if you want to sell stuff overpriced, have a garage sale. You can probably overcharge the garage sale because there's no competition next to you.
Right. Right. Makes
But
sense.
at a card show, you've got to price things well. And LZ, like you said, people will remember that you gave them a good deal, and they will
Yes.
keep coming back to you.
Right
Mhm.
on. Right on. Dan, thank you so much for your time. It was a blast having you on.
Well,
Thanks,
thanks for
Dan.
having me. And again, go check out Front Row Card Show. We're in Vegas, Phoenix in 2 weeks, Pasadena, California, which is LA. And then we'll have our first show in Seattle in August.
Oh,
Excellent.
Seattle. Nice.
Excellent.
All right.
All
Great.
All
right.
right. All up and down the West Coast, Front Row Card Show.
You
Great.
got it. Thanks,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan. Bye,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.